Hey guys, so yesterday we looked at how to tell if two fractions were equivalent or not. So we had a problem like this. So you were given two fractions, so say 1/2 and 4/8, and we wanted to know, hey, are these equivalent, yes or no? So we used fraction strips yesterday. So we lined up, okay, here's my 1/2, here's my 4/8. Let's compare. Yeah, they are the same size, so yes, these would be equivalent. So yesterday you were already given two fractions. What I want us to do today is we're going to learn how to make an equivalent fraction. So let's just say you're not given a second number. What if you're just given one number and we want to know, hey, what is an equivalent fraction to 1/2? So what else is equivalent to a half? A couple of different things you can do. One thing that like we kind of did yesterday is we could use a fraction strips or fraction pieces and say, all right, well, what else is equivalent to a half? And you could look and use pieces like this. But what I want us to learn today is this strategy. It's going to be using multiplication to help us find equivalent fractions. It's going to be real simple if we know our multiplication facts. And before I even start, I kind of want to review a multiplication rule that will kind of help us understand how to make equivalent fractions. So, right, isn't it a rule in multiplication if you multiply any number by 1, it still equals the same number, right? So like if I had 5 times 1, the answer would still be 5, wouldn't it? Or if I had 8 times 1, the answer is still 8. So that multiplication rule that we have learned over the past years is if you multiply anything by 1 whole, the answer is still the same number. Well, and that works for fractions too. So if we take a fraction and we multiply it by 1 whole, the answer would still be the same size piece as what we started with. So if I take 1/2, right, multiply it by 1, I still get 1/2. But I want to look at this 1 whole piece here because there are other ways to write 1 whole. So let's look at the fraction strips and let's figure out other names for 1 whole. So look at these fraction strips. All right, so this is 1 whole, right? This yellow piece up here. Well, this is also a whole, right? How many halves equals a whole? 1/2, 2 halves. So look, 2 halves is the same as a whole. So like 1 whole is the same as 2 halves, right? Look at this other one. Okay, keep going. Well, this is a whole, this whole green thing, that's the same size as a whole. That's how many thirds? 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So, well, 1 whole is also equal to 3/3. You should start seeing a pattern here. Okay, well, what about fourths? How many fourths are equal to a whole? 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Look, 4/4 are equal to that whole. So 4/4. Do you notice what about these are all a whole? It's when the numerator and denominator are the same. So you're saying I need 2 out of 2 pieces, 3 out of 3 pieces, 4 out of 4 pieces. So look, all of these are the same way. So it could be any number over itself, right, equals a whole. Even if I said, all right, 52 out of 52, guess what? That's 1 whole piece because it's 52 tiny pieces, 52 pieces. So any of these numbers, excuse me, is the same as 1 whole. So I want to remember that as I am going to be finding an equivalent fraction. So let's say, all right, I have my 1/2. I want to find an equivalent fraction for 1/2. So I'm just going to multiply it times 1, just like I would a regular number, right? 5 times 1 equals 5. I want to multiply my 1/2 times a whole to figure out another name for a half. So I can multiply it by any of those names that we just looked at for a whole. So like look here. Let's say I want to multiply it by 4/4. That's a whole, right? That's 1. So if I multiply 1/2 times 4/4, that's the same as multiplying 1/2 times 1. We should get the exact same piece. So look what we're going to do. We're just going to multiply straight across. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. And look, that's the pieces that we had at the beginning, right? 1/2 is the same size as 4/8. I've made an equivalent fraction just by multiplying by the number 1 or 1 whole, just like I would for regular multiplication down here. It works with any number. Let me show you a new one. So let's say I still want to find another equivalent fraction for 1/2. I can multiply it by any whole fraction that I want. So let's say I multiply it by 5/5. That's 5/5 is 1 whole. Okay, well, multiply straight across. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. So you're saying 1/2 is the equivalent to 5/10? Yeah, it is. Look, we have it here on this board. 1/2 is the same down here as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/10. Look, I didn't even have to use the fraction strips. I could just multiply by 1 whole to get and make my own equivalent fraction. So it is equivalent to 1/2. You don't have to do it with halves. It will work with literally any fraction. So let's say, please make an equivalent fraction for 2/3. Okay, well, maybe I don't have my pieces, you know, or my fraction pieces. I know I just need to multiply by 1 whole, just like I would say, okay, well, 3 times 1 is 3, right? I'm going to multiply by 1. I get the same answer. I need to multiply by 1. So let's choose 1 whole that we want to multiply it by. It can literally be any of those whole numbers from our paper here. So I don't know, maybe 6/6 or 1/2, 2 2s. You know, it literally can be anything. 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 5/5. We can choose. So I'm just going to choose a random one. Let's say 3/3. So I'm going to multiply it by 3/3 because that's this whole piece right here. Well, okay, 3/3. That's 1 whole. So I'm multiplying 2/3 times 1. And I should get something that is the same as 2/3, but just with a different name. So multiply across the top. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. So 2/3 should be the same as 6/9. Let's check that with our thing, all right? Well, 2/3 is right here. 2/3. Is that the same as 6/9 down here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it is. So 2/3 is the same as 6/9. So what you guys are going to do and what we've been practicing is if you multiply any fraction times 1 or 1 whole, which there's other ways to write 1 whole. We just looked at that, right? So 2/2, 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, 6/6, 7/7. Those are all different ways to write one whole. If you multiply that, you get an equivalent fraction, just like we would for regular multiplication. So that's what we're going to be practicing today.